Operation GG Jackson Watch has been in full go for the past 48 hours. People woke up to the news on Sunday morning that Jackson might be considering decommitting from North Carolina. Oh no, is it true? Deep breath, everyone. Calm down. I'm here to talk you through it. Everything's gonna be just fine.
You are Locked On Tar Heels, your daily podcast on the UNC Tar Heels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, it's Tuesday, July 5th, 2022. Welcome into the Locked On Tar Heels podcast. I'm your host, Isaac Schade, and I want to thank you for making Locked On Tar Heels your first watch or your first listen every single day. Please don't forget that we are free and available anywhere you get podcasts, so go ahead and subscribe right now. For those of you watching, also go ahead and smash the like button. It's so helpful in helping get the word out about our show. Listen, folks, I'm recording this on Monday night, so it's still July 4th. Right now it is 11:45 p.m. and I still hear fireworks going off around me everywhere. I swear to everything holy, if these people wake up my 6 or my 3-year-old, I'm going to lose it. Okay, we're gonna be okay. My son, my 6-year-old, is real sensitive to loud noises, so he's literally wearing a pair of headphones in bed right now. It's pretty awesome and funny. But seriously, I love celebrating. If you want to go blow up your money with fireworks, knock yourself out. They're beautiful and I'll enjoy it from afar. I'd like to thank LinkedIn Jobs for being the official college football recruiting sponsor across the Locked On College Network. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions apply. Okay, for real, what is going on with GG Jackson? That's what everyone wants to know. Well, for those of you who have had your head under a rock for the past 2 days or who are just unfamiliar with the situation, let me catch you up to speed. GG Jackson is the number one recruit in most recruiting services for the class of 2023 for men's basketball. He is a North Carolina committed earlier this spring. On Sunday morning, July 3rd, Jamie Shaw, who writes for On3, tweets an article that he wrote for On3 Plus's subscription service. And what he tweeted along with the link to the article was, all caps, new intel. Will GG Jackson decommit from UNC? Has reclassification talk resurfaced? And as usual with Jamie Shaw, he tagged several accounts, including some Carolina accounts and some South Carolina accounts. Yes, on this show, we say Carolina for North Carolina, and we specify when we're talking about South Carolina because the Tar Heels are Carolina. Thank you. There we go. A little while later on Sunday, Shaw tweets something else with the link to the same article. On3 Intel, if number one recruit GG Jackson decommits from UNC, where would he go? Once again, tags a bunch of sites, different sites this time, but tags a bunch of sites all the same. And then Joe Tipton, you might know from Tipton Edits, anytime like a football or basketball recruit commits, a lot of times they use Tipton Edits to help make a whatever for it to go on social media, and that's how we do it. So he's part of On3 as well, and so Tipton quote tweets what Jamie Shaw had put up and says, will 5-star GG Jackson decommit from North Carolina? More info below, and so you can click on the link if you pay money to be part of On3's subscription service. I am not, and so there you go. So all of this, just to help paint the picture, has reclassification talk resurfaced. At one point, GG Jackson had talked about the potential of reclassifying to the class of 22 to come into college this upcoming academic year, but had ultimately said his body wasn't ready for it. And then in terms of decommitting in South Carolina, what's going on with that? Well, ultimately, a lot of the conversation came down to Jackson choosing between Carolina and South Carolina. or going the pro route with like G League or something. And so those are some of the possibilities there. That's what's ultimately going on. Okay, now you're caught up to speed and you see how people would pick up on that and start losing their collective minds and freaking out. Well, to make matters a little bit worse, GG Jackson himself gets on Twitter and retweets one of those things from Jamie Shaw and the one from Joe Tipton. And he liked both of them. And so obviously everyone's all up in arms. Oh, not only did this information come out, but now it seems to be more credible because GG himself is interacting with it on Twitter. And then Jackson, after a couple hours, made his Twitter profile private. Like, you couldn't just follow it, you had to request to follow it. And so it's this whole thing, and everyone's all concerned. So, here's the deal from me. Full transparency, I did not read this article. Why? Because I'm not paying for this subscription. And so I just frankly don't care, and I'm going to rely on others to tell me what it says. So I do have a screenshot of a couple different parts of the article, but haven't read the whole thing, but I've got the gist of what it's saying. And I'll read a little bit of it, some quotes from it in the next segment. But I've been told there's something about him being upset about the Pete Nance commitment. So that's interesting. We'll talk about that. I've been told that because of his recent play at the Top 100 camp where he was voted MVP, that maybe he's starting to reconsider reclassifying for the class of 22. He's done everything he needs to do for it, potentially. And then I've also been told there's potential of him, again, going G League or to South Carolina instead of Carolina. So all of these are things that I'm hearing coming out of this article. And so all of this noise, these articles, GG retweeting it, GG liking it, GG making his Twitter profile private, all this absurd stuff that we have to deal with in this day and age. The question is, how do we respond? How does the Carolina family, how does the Tar Heel Nation respond to all this news? Well, predictably, regardless of how we should respond, everyone and their brother is freaking out. Have you heard anything? Have you heard anything? Let's follow up with this guy. Let's check in with this source. Blah, 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 blah. That's happening all day Sunday and then into Monday as well. Everyone's trying to just figure out who has heard something. Potentially even GG himself will come out and say something about it. Well, let me say this. So much of this is coming from social media. It is not worth your time or my time or concern to freak out over the social media whims of a teenager, even if it is an insanely talented teenager, as GG Jackson clearly and obviously is. These young men and women, these high school students, keep in mind, GG Jackson is still a high school student. Tweet, retweet, like, favorite, comment, DM, all this stuff on just about anything related to them, whether there's truth to it or not. Now, obviously, he's not going to retweet some blatant bald-faced lie. He's not just going to retweet because his name's on it and go on about his business. But anytime that you're a teenager and you see your name in lights, you want to further that message. And so don't get caught up in the whims of a teenager's actions on social media. I would also like to encourage all of us, myself included, don't make broad assumptions about the intentions of a high school student based on his social media activity. Could change his mind like the changing of the wind at a moment's notice with any of this stuff. And so just want to say, hey, let's pump the brakes on freaking out. Let's start to look at the lay of the land, see if we can figure out a little bit more about what is actually going on. And so, with that in mind, to me, the best way to process any of these things, process anything that's going on, particularly process a decision, is to try to live in both realities, right? Like if I'm trying to decide between going to Taco Bell or Arby's, sometimes if I can't make that decision, which is silly to think about, but go with me here, I would live in the reality of, what if I was eating Taco Bell right now? How would that feel? What would I get? What would I want? And how awful would I feel tomorrow? Or with Arby's, let's live in that reality. How would that feel and taste and all those things? What about fries, right? Let's do the same. Let's take some time on today's show to live in both of these realities. What if this rumor, we'll call it, is not true? Let's live in that reality for a little bit. And then let's take some time to live in the reality of, yeah, but what if it is true? What does that mean for GG Jackson? What does that mean for the Tar Heels? We're going to do both of those things. We're going to start with what if it's not true in just a minute, right after I tell you about LinkedIn. As the sun comes out, it's beautiful and overwhelmingly hot in the summer, and small businesses are back in action. LinkedIn Jobs makes it easier to grow your team. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the people you want to interview faster and for free. So create a job post in minutes on LinkedIn Jobs to reach your network and beyond to the world's largest professional network of over 810 million people. Then add your job and the purple hashtag frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring to your network so that they can help you find the right people to hire. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on the candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you would like to interview and ultimately hire. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus their leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the candidate you want to talk to faster. Did you know every week nearly 40 million job seekers visit LinkedIn? So, post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. There's more fireworks. I'm going to lose my mind. Okay, so let's first live in a world, in a reality where what we have heard from On3 about GG Jackson is not true. What does that mean? What does that look like? Well, plain and simple, if it's not true, it's not true, and we move on with our business as usual. GG Jackson is still part of the class of 2023 for North Carolina, along with Mr. Wilcher to come in and form a dynamic duo for Carolina. The first question for me, though, is to ask, is this just clickbait from On3? Or is it legitimate intel? Well, when Joe Tipton puts out content, it's on the money. And so if he's retweeting something that Jamie Shaw has written, there's got to be some level of truth and insight to it. Now, I've also noticed Jamie Shaw's content to be usually on, but that he does reach looking for clicks. I mean, that's just the era we live in. You have to get clicks to get eyeballs to get paid. That's the reality of this job. And so I'm not saying by any stretch of the imagination that Jamie Shaw is wrong or lying or anything like that, but maybe it's some truth. So it's just hard to say right now. You want to believe everything you read and hope that it is, and I'm not saying you shouldn't believe it. But anytime this man tweets out an article, tags a whole host of people in it so that they will see it and read it and interact with it. There's nothing wrong with that. That's how Twitter's designed to be. But it is clearly an engagement tactic. So, is it clickbait? Or is it legit intel? I'm inclined at this point to believe that there's some of both. Why do I say that? Well, I would imagine GG Jackson coming out of this top 100 camp where he's voted MVP, it makes you stop and consider exactly who you are and what you're capable of. Especially, again, as a teenager, where you want to see your name in lights, you want to get to the places you want to go. But also, let's not be so hasty to rush to say, oh, he did this, he's changing his plans, he's going to do something different. from everything I've seen and heard and interacted with GG Jackson, this is a grounded young man. This is somebody with a good family life who is helping guide and steer and direct him in good and healthy ways. And so again, I'm not saying that there's anything duplicitous or wrong or lying with what On3 has done, but I'm not going to rush out to proclaim that the British are coming, I'm not going to be Paul Revere over here with this article from them. So honestly, I think it's somewhere in between. I think it's a little bit of both of clickbait and legit intel. Now, here's something else you have to keep in mind. I have purposefully and intentionally left this part of the timeline out until now. On Monday, I forget what time it was, let's say it's Monday afternoon, right after lunch, GG Jackson goes live on Instagram with who I believe is his girlfriend as well. I didn't watch this whole thing. I caught it midstream, and so I didn't go in and start writing down verbatim what he was saying, although potentially I should have, because it could have been more specific and deliverable intel straight from the horse's mouth to all of us. But here's what GG Jackson was ultimately saying as I interpreted it over and over and over again. These are just rumors, and that he's not wavering, he's not considering decommitting. I tweeted something to that effect, in fact, after hearing that, because people are chomping at the bit to try to figure out what is going on. Is GG himself going to make a statement at some point? And that's the absurdity of this whole thing, is that he even has to. And so, now, to me it was, and a lot of other people who watched that, it seemed pretty plain and clear and obvious that what he was saying was that it's just rumors, that there's nothing to it, blah, blah, blah. But there are a couple people who reached out to me just to be full transparency and fairness. Some people who watched and said they interpreted it differently, that they thought he was saying that there was some validity to it. I didn't get that from what I saw and heard. So there's that. So for now, let's just say that GG himself is restating his commitment to the North Carolina Tar Heels, which again, he shouldn't have to do, right? The world we live in, though, is always digging, always trying to make everything a story. And so I get it and I understand it, but I don't like it. Also, despite liking the tweets, he's still, despite liking those tweets from On3, which, by the way, he's taken those retweets down. That's gone, the retweeting of the On3 story. All his tweets and Instagram posts about being committed to North Carolina are still very much present. Pinned, his commitment is pinned at the top of his Twitter page. You got to think, after making your profile private and then posting it back public again, if he's wanting to make changes or make a social media statement about his intentions, he would have done so. But nothing about that. It's all still there. And so you take that, for me, at face value as that's what he's saying. So if not true, then we roll with it and we just say, hey, On3, you missed the mark on that one a little bit. And everything GG is saying and doing seems to say that this is not true, and we go about business as usual. However, let's stop and live in a world as well where this news is true and that GG is in fact considering decommitting from North Carolina and going another route. What does that mean? How do we interact with it? We'll talk about it in just a second. But first, let me tell you about Bet Online, which is your number one source for all your sports needs and info for betting. Find all the latest developments, league reviews, and news, including Major League Baseball, which has just got a couple weeks left until the All-Star break. Bet Online is your continued source for all your sports wagering info, including live betting, esports, and scores. And it's the best spot for all your podcasts and news this season. BetOnline.net is the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your favorite sports and events, including MMA, boxing, and golf. So head to the website today or Use your mobile device to learn more about all the trends in action. Bet online, where the game starts. Okay, so now let's move our brains into a world where this GG Jackson news is true or has validity to it. Here's what I'll say right out of the gate about it. We, the Carolina family, those who live and breathe Tar Heels, the coaching staff, everybody involved, obviously want GG Jackson to be a Tar Heel. Why would you not, right? Like, that is a big thing. But if he doesn't want to be a Tar Heel, so be it. There have been lots of other players throughout the years who just ultimately either didn't want to be a Tar Heel or weren't offered or chose something else. Coach Hubert Davis has said all along he wants players who want to be in Chapel Hill. He wants players who want to be Tar Heels. And everything seems to say that GG Jackson is on board with that. But if he's not, okay. Brandon Ingram wanted to be a Tar Heel, and he decided not to. And he went to Duke for his 1 year of college. You know what season that was? 2015-16. National runners-up. I mean, yeah, I don't know. Maybe Brandon Ingram blocks Chris Jenkins' shot. I don't think he really makes that big a difference in that year. So, you'd love to have GG Jackson on this team. But if he doesn't want to be there, if he wants to make a different decision, best of luck to you. We'll see you around. It's been a fun couple months of you being committed to being a Tar Heel. As good as GG is, and he is phenomenally talented as a basketball player and is a great young man, what you need is a team that is fully and wholly bought in to the ideals and principles of what Coach Davis and the rest of the coaching staff and all the supporting staff of the North Carolina Tar Heels are trying to bring together. Again, you are hoping and planning and anticipating that GG Jackson is still part of that until he says something contrary to that fact. But you're better off with a completely bought-in team. So, if he doesn't want to be part of that, best of luck to you. We'll see you down the road. Because remember, no single individual player is greater or bigger than North Carolina basketball. Dean Smith is not bigger than North Carolina basketball. He is, in a big way, North Carolina basketball, but he's not bigger than it. He himself would say that. Same is true for Roy Williams. Same is true for Michael Jordan. Sam Perkins, James Worthy, Tyler Hansborough, Phil Ford, Ed Cota, Ademola Okulaja, Antoine Jameson, all these guys. No, none of them are bigger than Carolina basketball. They're all Carolina basketball, but they're not bigger than it. And neither is GG Jackson. He could be a huge part of it, and he'd be a fun part of it, but he's not bigger than it. Now, as I referenced earlier, I did see, was shared a screenshot of part of the On3 article, and I want to read it to you, the part that I did see. It says this: Intel suggests this picked back up, this considering reclassifying or decommitting, after UNC gained a commitment from Pete Nance. Nance was UNC's final available scholarship, and he plays the same position as Jackson. Well, sort of. They're different players. Anyway, sources suggest Jackson had that position and scholarship earmarked for himself, and UNC taking Nance was off-putting for Jackson. I wholeheartedly reject, no. GG Jackson has said all along, I am not going to reclassify. I don't want to reclassify. I am committed to the class of 2023. Now, if he's changed his mind in recent, the past week or so, cool. That's great. But that does not stand in the way of this news, because Pete Nance committed a couple weeks ago now. And so there should be nothing that causes overlap issues here. Why? Pete Nance has 1 year of eligibility. And so, assuming that everything is continuing as it has been and should be, GG Jackson wouldn't even come to Carolina until after Pete Nance is gone. So that scholarship, that position would not have been earmarked for GG Jackson. And if he thinks that a position is earmarked for him, then he's got Coach Davis all wrong. And so I don't buy that part of this article. Now, there might be other parts I would buy, and there might be other parts I wouldn't buy. But that's just patently wrong to me, because if Jackson has said over and over and over again, publicly and privately, I'm committed to the class of 2023, that's when I'm coming, then there's no reason for him to be upset about a Pete Nance commitment. If anything, it helps continue to bolster what Carolina's trying to do before GG Jackson comes in the next year. I don't buy it. If so, if this is truly how he feels, there's nothing you can do with that. You can't wait around all summer for GG Jackson to change his mind on reclassifying when you're not expecting him to. You got to go out and get somebody to fill out the front court. And that's exactly what Hubert Davis did. I'm not buying it. Now, here's another thing about if this is true. Remember, we're living in the reality of this GG Jackson considering decommitting news being true. Similar to what we said about athletic director Bubba Cunningham yesterday concerning conference realignment. You better believe Coach Hubert Davis is not caught off guard by this. If he had any hint of this, any inkling that it might be a thing, he and the coaching staff have made plans and adjustments and preparations. Because again, no one player is bigger than North Carolina basketball, and so they just go back to the drawing board and figure out, all right, who do we bring in? Who do we get? Do we wait for the transfer portal? Do we look at other people in the class of 23? What does that look like? Again, if it's a thing, Coach Davis is ready for it. Now, South Carolina, if that's the play here, that makes zero sense to me. Because, yes, he was a heavy South Carolina lean when Frank Martin was there. Frank Martin got the boot. And this is, yes, his hometown school. His mom was there. But it doesn't matter. Frank Martin's gone. They have a whole new coaching staff. They're SEC bottom feeders. They haven't done anything of note since they beat Duke in the 2016 NCAA tournament. Thank you very much, Gamecocks, for that. However, it's not even a lateral move. It is a multi-step down move. And so South Carolina as a landing point doesn't make sense to me right now either. And so I disagree with that side of it from On 3. G League, I can't. That is the only other non-Carolina thing that would make sense to me. If he's wanting to reclassify and do the class of 22, or even if he wants to decommit and do that class of 23, I can see that. But as we've talked about in recent days, you're going to Siberia if you go to the G League. If GG Jackson wants to do that, great. Go be with Modest Buzelis. Awesome. Love it for you. But you're giving up 40 or just shy of 40 games of being on national TV, raising your national profile, not just for scouts, but also a fan base who can pour everything into you, both now and follow you throughout your professional career. That's what you would have with North Carolina. You go the G League route, you don't have a bit of that, and you don't raise your national profile any with it either. So G League makes more sense to me, but still, I don't see it. Okay. Carolina family, here's what we need to say, though, as we live in this reality of if GG's leaving. If he's going to go, let him go. I just feel like I see in these types of situations, people just being goobers on social media, just making silly statements, and there's just no need for it. Let the young man do what he's going to do. If it's not what you think you want or is best for him, then you're too concerned with somebody else's decision making and how it affects your life. I mean, I'm sorry if that is a hurtful thing for me to say, but you know what? I'm going to worry about the decisions of my 6-year-old son, Paxton, and my 3-year-old daughter, Poppy. I'm going to help them navigate life and do other things. I'm going to let Gigi Jackson's family take care of him. I'm going to let Gigi Jackson take care of Gigi Jackson. There's just no need for us to get bent out of shape. It just makes the Carolina family, the Carolina fan base look silly and dumb when things like that happen. So if Gigi Jackson's going to go, let him go gently into that good night. And don't fret, because if he leaves, there's somebody else out there. The transfer portal has been very good to North Carolina. Yes, it was essentially one hit out of 3 last year in the form of Brady Manek. But in a different scenario and circumstance, I think Dawson Garcia could have fit really well. And not that Justin McCoy doesn't fit well, he just hasn't been the splash that Brady Manek was. I think Pete Nance is going to be a splash this year. People want to come to North Carolina. And so if that's not Gigi Jackson, Coach Davis will find somebody else who wants to do so. I'm going to keep banging this drum. Trust Hubert Davis. Trust Hubert Davis. If in this scenario where we're living in a world where Gigi Jackson's leaving, trust Hubert Davis. Don't trust the whims of a teenager. Trust Hubert Davis, who lives and breathes and drinks and dreams about all the time what it means to be a Tar Heel and how he can make this team the best it can possibly be. Trust him. Let him do his job. We don't have to worry about it. We don't have to do it for him. So, end of the day, I've got a 6-year-old. I've got a 3-year-old. They're enough for me to worry about. More so. I don't need to worry about anything beyond that, to be concerned with anything beyond that. They take up plenty of time by themselves. I don't need to add to that by being concerned with what Gigi Jackson's going to do. So that said, yeah, I'm going to pay attention to recruiting. I'm going to keep up with Gigi Jackson going live on Instagram because that's my job, so that I can then relay that to you and help make sense of all this and the landscape and what's happening and all of that. But I'm ultimately going to concern myself more with the young men and women who do ultimately end up coming to Chapel Hill, who do actually end up becoming Tar Heels. We still hope that Gigi Jackson is going to be one of those, but if not, there's going to be some other wonderful young man in that spot who you're going to get to know and love and cheer for. You want that to be Gigi Jackson, but if not, it's okay. It'll be okay. They're going to win a lot of basketball games. And hopefully one on the last Monday night of the 2023-24 college basketball season. Well, that's it for today's episode of Locked on Tar Heels. Coming up tomorrow, Coach Pack Kilby and I continue in our summer preview series looking ahead to the 2022-23 Carolina roster. And we move now into the sophomores, and we will be talking about DeMarco Dunn, looking back at some of his freshman year and then looking ahead to his sophomore year. Thanks so much for making Locked on Tar Heels your first listen or your first watch every single day. Please go subscribe to the show wherever it is you listen or watch. While you're there, smash the like button, leave a comment on your thoughts about this whole Gigi Jackson thing. What do you think he's going to do? Is he going to stay at Tar Heel, or is he going to go somewhere else? Follow the show on Twitter at Locked on Heels, and you can follow me on Twitter at Isaac Schade. Get more on the ACC by making Locked on ACC your second listen right after this. Host Candace Cooper and the local experts of the Locked On schools take you across the conference in 30 minutes, 5 days a week. Hey, thanks so much for spending part of your Tuesday. Hopefully you're doing okay after Independence Day. But thanks for hanging out with me, talking about Gigi Jackson and Carolina sports. And remember, regardless of what this young man decides to do, it is always a great day to be a Tar Heel. Until tomorrow, peace!